The Society of St. Vincent de Paul continues to do great work in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, and we're able to do so because of many individuals that are involved with our work. Today we've got a really special guest, Sister Chris from St. Joseph's Academy. Sister Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's a privilege to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, my daughters Miranda and Madison were students of yours back in the day. It's hard to believe they're both graduates of LSU now, and you know that was it's 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. It goes by fast, doesn't it?
It does.
Sister?
They grow up fast.
So, how were you called to become a sister of St. Joseph?
Well, I believe it starts in the family. As you know, I came from a very Catholic family, both my parents. 12 years of Catholic education with the Sisters of St. Joseph, by the way. And we always used to laugh. My mother would be homeschool mother. She'd be the PTA president. My father was Holy Name, parish trustees. And he'd go to a parish meeting and we'd all sit there when he came home and said, "What did you sign us up for?" But I think that's what parents need to do, is not just talk about the faith, but put it into action. And
right.
So my parents put it into action by showing us that we had to get involved. And we did that. And then you went to a Catholic school, so the sisters taught you that. And one of my earliest memories was second grade. We're coming back from First Friday Mass. All the little kids went over First Friday Mass. We're coming back, and in New York we call it dumpster diving. There was a homeless person going through the dumpster looking for food. Right. Sister stopped the class, went over and said, "What are you doing?" And of course the guy pops out of the dumpster and goes, "Oh, sister, I'm so sorry." She goes, "No, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm looking for food." She goes, "You get out of there. You go to that building over there and you wait on those steps and I'll be there in 15 or 20 minutes. We go back to class and we go, "Sister, what are you going to do?" She goes, "I'm going to feed them lunch." So we go home, tell all our parents, and they're like, "Well, you should. Why didn't you invite them home?" And I'm looking going, "Mom, you would not have been happy." And she goes, "Anyone is welcome at this table." So that was my first example. My second example was years later. 2 parents came to the school to interview. We had a full school, so you had a waiting list. And, they drove up and had this gorgeous Cadillac, dressed to the nines, came in to interview with the principal. And we're all lined up in the hall because we had bathroom break time. They leave, a mother comes in, a single mother with her kid looking a little disheveled. And they get interviewed. And 2 days later, the kid that was disheveled is in my classroom. And I remember looking at Sister going, she goes, "She's a new student. You're to make her feel welcome." And a couple of years later, you're older. You go back, you go, "Sister, why did we take her? We already had like 27 kids. And she goes, "She needed us." And I learned very early that for the Sisters of St. Joseph, it's not about the money. It's about responding to the needs. And you do that by being attentive, by listening, by rolling up your sleeves, just like my parents taught me, and you get involved and you serve.
And core to the Sisters of St. Joseph mission is our dear neighbor.
Amen.
And that child fit that description. The sisters are truly committed to our dear neighbor. Will you talk a little bit about that commitment to our dear neighbor and why it's so important?
Well, our history, we go back to France, and we were founded during the French Revolution. And like your sister Louise,
yes,
our sister mother St. John Fonfon had a vision.
Yes.
And the vision was to leave the convents, which was
yes,
radical,
yes,
and go out into the city and find the needs. And so when we left the convent, going out to visit the homes, we discovered homelessness, poverty, illiteracy, healthcare needs. And dear to us is the story of the Good Samaritan. Jesus tells the story, everybody walks by, but who helps out?
Yes.
And we are called as sisters to not walk by the dear neighbor. We are to help the marginalized, the people on the edges, the refugees, the homeless, the mentally ill, the students that are struggling. Our job is to respond with compassionate love and the inclusive love of Christ.
And the most important part and aspect of the society, we were talking about this a little bit off camera before we started, was love thy neighbor and to really love one another and grow spiritually in doing so. Mm-hmm. And that's so very important.
Yes, it is. And that, again, is religious life. We begin our day in prayer, we celebrate Eucharist, and we end with the Liturgy of the Hours, which is the night prayer of the church. And it keeps us grounded. We have to go to the table. We have to be fed by Christ in Eucharist, but it's the prayer and it's the cries of the times. You listen to the news, read the newspapers, you listen to the young people I teach and say, what are the contemporary issues that we as a Christian community need to respond to? And let me tell you, the high school kids will tell you.
Yes, they're on top of
You have daughters,
everything.
you know what it's like.
Yeah, now they're college graduates thanks to St. Joseph's Academy, but you're right, they're on top of things. And I know that, you know, when I was raising, me and my wife, when we were raising our wonderful twin daughters, sometimes they're not wonderful, but that's being a parent, right, sister?
Right, that's part of being a kid too.
You know, and I'm sure we weren't wonderful parents, but we did our best and they've done their best. But I thought about how hard in the world that we were raising them it was to raise them. But nowadays I reflect on what the world is today versus 15, 20 years ago, in my case 24 years ago when they were born. You know, it just, my goodness, the parents have a real challenge nowadays.
Absolutely, and it's a vocation.
Yes.
And you get the grace of the vocation.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I pray for you every single day because I get to send them home.
Well, you know, that's
I love them, but I send them home.
Yeah, that's kind of my grandfather expectation is, you know, being able to do exactly what you just said. Because I just can't imagine raising a child in today's world, because 20 years ago, I think it was more open that if you had people that had disagreements, you could agree to disagree. In today's world, that really, you know, for myself, and I'm sure you agree, that, you know, when somebody has a different opinion than I do, I give that an opportunity to reflect. How can that maybe help me grow spiritually? Maybe it's one of those items like abortion where I'm never going to change my view on that. But there may be other views that I might be more open to and it'll help me grow spiritually. But in today's world, it seems like there are not as many people open to agree to disagree or to try to grow in that way. And that's so important in personal growth and spiritual growth, right, sister?
Absolutely. I think the polarization has done a great destruction to our community and our civil bonds and our unity. I think that's one of the primary goals of the Academy, is to teach children, young adults, to critically think. And to do that, you have to look at both sides of an issue, the good and the bad, and not the rumor. Get the facts on both sides. Talk about them, present them, then look at them in the light of the Catholic faith, and then make a discerning and prayerful decision of where you stand. And we can guide them in the Catholic principles of the Church. You know, the dignity of people, the responsibility, the common good, solidarity. We can teach those, but you have to live those. You have to be willing to live those. And we have to model those. You know, so again, that goes back to our inclusive love of the dear neighbor. I might disagree with you, but I have a responsibility to still treat you with respect. I don't bat you over the head.
Right.
You know, you're still my brother.
Right.
I disagree. You see things differently.
Right.
But we're going to continue to work at it.
Right.
One of those examples for me would be Sister Helen Prejean. You may know her.
Yes.
You know, capital punishment.
Yes.
She is against it. We are against it.
Yes.
The last three popes, John Paul II, Benedict, and Francis, have all said her ministry, a capital punishment, is a right to life issue.
Correct. Yes.
And, you know, it's from womb to tomb. It's not one issue, it's all life.
Right.
You know, the Holy One breathes us into being, and only the Holy One gets to take that breath away at the end. Right. You and I, the government, doesn't get to decide that.
That's right.
So as citizens, we have to actively participate.
Right.
You and I may disagree.
We don't, but yes.
But we may, somebody may disagree, but we have to activate and use our civil rights and vote intelligently.
Right, there's no doubt. And you know, the beautiful thing about your story about Sister earlier in the segment was you talked about how she went and prepared a meal for this person who was in a situation of homelessness. She made no judgment. She saw an opportunity to serve our dear neighbor, and in doing so, serve Christ. And that's what the mission of the Sisters of St. Joseph is to serve our dear neighbor. And we come back for the next segment, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the wonderful ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph. We'll talk about the importance of serving our dear neighbor. For over 20 years, the St. Vincent de Paul Community Pharmacy has served our area. We provide prescription medicines for those who have nowhere to turn for this most basic healthcare need. Please, if you need your medicine or you know a family member that needs their medicine, contact us. Kay, how can they get in touch?
383-7450.
Give us a call today and spread the word so that we can ensure no one goes without their prescription medication. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul's first cookbook, Taste and See, is the gift which helps share the goodness of the Lord with those most in need. Featuring recipes from Chef John Foles, each chapter begins with a short story about one of our special work programs. To order your copy of Taste and See, please call the Society or visit our website. Help multiply blessings for the neediest in our community. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul is so blessed to serve our neighbors who need a helping hand of love and compassion. And that is the mission of the Sisters of St. Joseph, to serve our dear neighbor. Sister Chris, that's the focus of the Sisters of St. Joseph's ministry.
Yes, it is. And it's drilled into us during formation that the dear neighbor is everybody. And we're an international organization, every continent except Antarctica. So I'll tell you a story that I learned when I was younger. Fukushima, they had the nuclear meltdown, if you remember.
Yes.
And it was a disaster, and they had to evacuate people. And Catholic Relief Services went over, talked to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister surprised them and came back and said, we want a Sister of St. Joseph in charge of the relief effort. And they were like, wait a minute. This is not a Catholic country. There is a minuscule number of Catholics, and how do you know about the sisters? And he said, my advisors have told him that the sisters will serve anyone. They will not ask your religion. They will not ask, if you have a need and you show up, the sisters will serve you. And that's what I want. These are our people of Japan. They're in need. I don't want people asking, what family, what clan they're, just serve them. So we went, found one of our sisters who was a social worker and reassigned her to help with the relief effort. It was shocking. It was amazing. The immigrant crisis at the border. We send out across the United States any sister that wants to go. And 9 times out of 10, it's our retired sisters who are going, former teachers, nurses, whatever, going down and helping the migrants, the immigrants that want to come to the country, who are refugees, separated from their parents, and trying to say to them, it's going to be okay. So we go wherever the need is, and we serve whoever is put in front of us.
In the true spirit of the patron of social workers, St. Louise de Marlac, that's a call to reach out, to serve our dear neighbor, and to do it in a way that, not only helps the dear neighbor in their time of distress, but helps the Sister of St. Joseph grow spiritually, because she's serving Christ. She's doing the Lord's work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are called to see Christ in every person we meet.
Right.
And it's a transformation, because sometimes, I don't see so clearly. There are sometimes I might want to judge, or I might be uncomfortable, depending on what my background is. I may have grown up in an upper middle class family where, my interaction with a homeless person might have been very limited, or it was more giving versus having a conversation.
Right.
Or someone who might be, let's say, gay or lesbian, or somebody who might be a refugee, a Latino person. I didn't grow up in that neighborhood.
Right.
Teach me.
Right.
Open my heart. Let me hear your story. Share stories. Break bread.
Right.
Find the commonality of us as God's people.
Right. And that's our call. Because I think we would both agree that really, I'm a big proponent, and I say it all the time on the show, that Jesus really gave us a message: love one another. Because I can't think of one problem that doesn't really solve. It solves all problems if we love one another. It doesn't say judge somebody and then serve them if they meet all these criteria. It says love them.
Well, and I think of Jesus. Think of who he loved: the outcast, the marginalized, the lepers, the blind, the women, the religious official who came to him as night, Nicodemus, the Roman soldier who had the people that crucified him, he said, forgive them. I'm like, if Jesus talked to everybody, never turned anybody away,
Right.
I can't do that. I mean, I have to be more like him.
That's it. That's our mission.
And that's our challenge.
Yeah.
How do we live like Christ in our world to bring the kingdom of God here?
Right. Well, you mentioned all of the retired sisters responding to, I consider it a big challenge, and it takes courage to do that. But I've known so many retired sisters, Sister Carolyn Brady, Sister Johan Peterson. I mean, Sister, there's just so many wonderful sisters that I know have been involved with the St. Vincent de Paul Society. It's just, it's amazing to see that you talk about womb to tomb. The Sisters of St. Joseph, what a remarkable commitment to that ministry.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Sister Johan and Sister Carolyn, they did their ministry they could not do their ministry
Absolutely.
anymore.
And you have Sister Joan Laplace now.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, Sister Joan Laplace is too young to be retired. Tell her that. Tell her I said that. You're right. Sister Joan is, wow, what a wonderful, wonderful example of the Sisters of St. Joseph in action. And, I just can't say enough about what a blessing it has been to have the support of the sisters through the years. And I know Sister June Oquan, she, shared, I think at one point she was the historian for the sisters here locally. And we had her on the show many, many years ago, and she shared a little bit about how the sisters and St. Vincent de Paul Society worked together in the 1870s on certain things. I'm like, wow, two institutions, the heart of the Catholic Church, that in a real true sense, you're talking about 150 plus years each, 300 years of evidence of serving our dear neighbor, and that's so important, isn't it, Sister?
Oh, it's absolutely. It's our mission, and that's why we exist, to do it with unifying love. A religious community gets a charism, which is a gift from the Spirit for the good of the whole church, and ours is to serve without distinction the dear neighbor with love. And we are called every day, the dear neighbor calls me that. Whoever I pass on the street, whoever I pass in the hallway at school, whatever faculty member, whatever student, whatever child of God, you respond.
And you respond with that love of God, and it's so very, very important. And when we come back, we'll talk about serving our dear neighbor, some of the wonderful programs, St. Vincent de Paul among them, that the Sisters of St. Joseph encourage their students to get involved and grow spiritually in serving our dear neighbor.
My Bicycle Journey, a book that tells a story. It educates, it promotes, and it also provides some leadership. Take the time to purchase this book, and St. Vincent de Paul benefits from all of the proceeds of this book. Please, if you would, give St. Vincent de Paul a call and let me know what you think of My Bicycle Journey.
Please, sir, I want some more.
More?
Thank you.
Well, we did say please. And thank you.
Please, and thank you. Pass it on.
Serving our dear neighbor is such an important aspect of the ministries of the Sisters of St. Joseph and St. Vincent de Paul. And it's important we all work together in serving our dear neighbor, isn't it, Sister?
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, that's part of South Louisiana's spirit. We saw that when Lake Charles got hit with the hurricane, devastated, and we're trying to figure out something to do. And one of our graduates, Mary Grace Miller, and her mom have family over there, and they called the academy and said, can you make sticker sacks? As you know, we give sticker sacks to St. Vincent de Paul. So I went to the girls, especially the seniors, and I said, hey, come on. There's a school over there. They got about 500 kids. We need to feed them. I'm challenging you, my seniors, to step up and do this. So then I went to the volleyball coach. The volleyball coach said, No problem. We'll feed the volleyball team. Basketball team. We'll feed the basketball team. I'm like, okay. The day came for delivery. I'm expecting 1,000. We had over 10,000.
That is wonderful.
I was absolutely shocked. The front of Mother Alice Hall was totally filled. I'm calling LSU. I'm calling Mrs. Miller. I'm trying to get help and trucks to get all this over there.
Yes.
So we do it, and it's phenomenal. But people were ready to give.
Yes.
And a real need, they respond.
Yes.
Plus it was COVID.
Yes.
So they wanted to do something.
Right.
So the next day I get a call saying they're going to serve a hot meal. Any of the girls want to go over? Unbeknownst to me, I send the email out to the girls, and a bunch of my girls go over. And I said to them, why'd you go? And they said, oh, my grandma saw that email. My grandma was displaced in Katrina. She said, they fed us, we're feeding them. Get in the car, we're going. 5 o'clock in the morning, they drive over, get there to feed them breakfast. I said, that's what we do.
That's it.
You respond to the dear neighbor. But you can't always just give. So this year with COVID again,
Right.
our girls would normally visit nursing homes. Well, you can't go visit the elderly. So every month they make cards. Halloween cards, Thanksgiving cards, Christmas cards. And then somebody said, well, let's do something for the first responders. So we made Valentine cards with little Valentine candy for Children's Hospital, Lady of the Lake, and then for a Children's Hospital in Mississippi that an alma mater, an alum asked us to do. But you had to do it early because they had to make sure they put it in a separate room, didn't have COVID, so they could give it to the guests.
Yes.
It was like, wow. But people wanted to give. And then, as you know, this is the year of St. Joseph, which God bless the Holy Father for declaring it the year of St. Joseph.
No doubt.
We're thrilled about it.
Yes, indeed.
So we decided to have a St. Joseph table, which is a typical Italian tradition, often here in South Louisiana. And we said to the girls, you know what, you're going to bring snacks in for the homeless.
Yes.
We're working with our senior sisters, we're working with our lay associates, and we're getting the whole community involved. We offered the alumni, the parents, the students. It was huge, huge. But the best part, the really best part, a couple days later, I go shopping at one of these big malls, not a clothing mall, but where a food store is. And there's a gentleman who's there every Saturday when I go shopping. And I bring a fiber bar to give him. He's a veteran, disabled vet in a wheelchair. His name's Phil. And I see him, hey, Phil, you want a fiber bar for breakfast? Oh, yeah, sure, sister. Go in. This week, I say, Phil, you want a fiber bar? He goes, nope. I said, Phil, why not? He goes, I stayed at St. Vincent's last night. He goes, they gave us a goodie bag for the day. He goes, I have cheese and crackers. I have cheese and peanut butter, crackers and peanut butter. I have a fiber bar. I have cookies. He goes, some high school in the area did this. I started crying. He goes, what's wrong? I said, I think I know those kids. It was St. Joseph's.
That's right.
And I said to him, don't you want my fiber bar? He goes, sister, I got enough. What a lesson.
Yes.
We don't need more than enough. We need enough. Give me my daily bread.
Yes.
Which is what we pray all the time in the Our Father. But how many
Yes.
of us stock up,
Right.
when really we just need for today?
Right.
But what a wonderful example. And he made me ponder and pray all day about that.
Yes.
I don't need that. Give that to somebody else who needs it. There might be somebody on the corner asking for food. Give it to him.
That's
Give
right.
it to her. Don't give it to me. I have enough.
Beautiful.
So again, the kids, it's hard because we want hands-on,
Yes.
but they can't do hands-on with COVID,
Right.
but they can still give back.
Yes.
We can pray, we can still donate, we did diapers for babies.
Yes.
We can't go see the babies, we can't visit them, but it's a necessity.
Right.
And with unemployment, with food,
Right.
We helped the Baton Rouge Food Bank. We had a
Right.
huge food drive at Thanksgiving time.
Yes.
And the kids were phenomenal.
Yes.
And then we said, okay, we'll even come help you sort it. You come pick it up. We'll send the upper class people the next day to sort it, and then repackage it.
Right.
And then the following week, another group went and helped hand it out.
Yes.
We can do that. We are young and the kids are young and physically able. I'm getting a little older around the edges, but But again, it's serving the dear neighbor.
Right.
It's doing what Christ did, responding to the needs of the times with whatever we have. But it's not just giving, it's also our time.
Right.
It's our talent.
Yes.
I have a young lady who helps me, comes in, computer figures my flyers out so they look really pretty and sharp. kind of like your Miss DeShea, who does a phenomenal job.
She does.
She did a great job. I loved working with her. She did our senior service day.
Yep.
We did Zoom storytelling with little people at your shelter.
Yep.
The girls read the story. The girls in the shelter heard the story. Our girls had dropped off the day before some arts and craftsy things.
Yes.
They made arts and crafts and showed it to our girls. Wonderful interaction.
Yes.
Wonderful creative storytelling. It was wonderful, and thanks to Miss DeShea and her creativity.
Yes, indeed. Well, y'all's, I mean, it's wonderful. Not even a worldwide pandemic could get in between the students at St. Joseph's Academy and serving our dear neighbor, and in this case, children in a homeless shelter.
Amen.
I mean, you know, we use technology to make it come to life, and y'all handled all the hard stuff technology-wise and arts and crafts-wise. But that connection, so very important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Whether it's somebody sitting outside a store that may be in a situation of homelessness, or a child in a homeless shelter, whatever the case may be, that's the call to serve our dear neighbor, is it not?
Yes, it is. And we do it quietly, usually without any fanfare, following the example of St. Joseph.
That's it.
Who was a provider, humble servant, and patron of our school.
Yes,
and our
indeed.
sisters.
Yes. Well, we have about 1 minute and 30 seconds left, sister. And what would your message be to the community? You know, we talked about not being judgmental. We talked about sharing God's love. We talked about loving our dear neighbor. What would your message be to encourage people to do that, and why is it important?
I would encourage people to be like Joseph and dream. Dream of a world where everyone has enough. Dream of a world where we truly treat each other with dignity and respect and love one another. You know, Joseph was a great dreamer. He dreamt that Jesus would be the incarnation of God.
Yes.
He had a dream to save Mary and Mary and the baby. He had a dream to go to a foreign country and be accepted as a refugee. And then he dreamed of coming home. Can you and I welcome each other as part of God's kingdom, as part of God's family, with that unifying love that we're called to be as Catholic Christians and as Sisters of St. Joseph?
Well, thank you, Sister Chris, for that powerful message, and thank you for taking time to be on the show and sharing the importance of serving our dear neighbor. We look forward to seeing you again next week on Beacons of Light.